Hey everyone, welcome to Meet the Makers. I'm Nick Mataragas. Usually we're doing this live on Facebook. We've had some technical difficulties tonight, so we're recording this and then posting it afterwards. So unfortunately we can't take any questions from you, but once the video is on Facebook, if you have any comments or questions, please put them on there and we will do our best to respond to them and share them with our wonderful artists. Tonight we have the Fringe Festival's featured visual artist, Jess Rocha. How are you, Jess?
I'm good. How are you, Nick?
I'm doing okay, despite the troubles we've been having with the recording.
Well, no.
Oh, good. So you are the featured artist this year, which means that your work is in a place of honor in the gallery. It's got its own wall to itself, and you were the person that designed the artwork for the festival this year.
Oh yeah, that was me.
Yeah. So
I
what
forgot.
you forgot?
Oh,
Well, it's
sorry.
everywhere. I mean, I even have it on my button right here, my Fringe button.
No,
So
it's amazing. I feel like I finally made it. Like, hey Ma, I made it. I'm on a pin.
you made the big
There's even
time.
a sticker.
Yeah.
Oh,
I have a sticker. You can't see it on, obviously, because it's on my computer, so it'd be hard for the webcam. But I have it on my computer, the sticker, and there's even a shiny version of the sticker, which is really
yeah, I
cool.
saw that. It's like a holographic one, so it's like you can trade that on the schoolyard, like for a Charmander or something like that.
Oh yeah, maybe a Charmander and like a Bulbasaur both.
Oh yeah.
Because it's got holographics. Yeah, that's super nerdy. What just happened between us right there? I'm sorry. I'm sorry to anybody that doesn't get what just happened. Those were
I'm not
Pokemon.
sorry. I've
So
got I could bring down binders. I still have all my Pokemon cards. Like, I'm not
that's amazing. So, what was it like, take us through the process of first, what was it like being approached to be the featured artist, and then what was it like process-wise getting to what we see today, which is this wonderfully happy, weird, tentacled being that we have for our Fringe art this year.
sure. So how I was approached, well, for one, people who are familiar with Side Street have probably seen me like lurking around by now. Because I've been involved with Side Street for I'd say 2 years now. I started when I graduated from college because I was like, I need to do art more and joining an organization. Um, Aaron and Tanner approached me. I, I think either after a meeting or they cornered me in the lab. I think they cornered me in the lab and they're like, hey, how do you feel about doing this poster? I was like, oh, that's amazing. That's awesome. And then I left and then they messaged me later, like, so are you doing it? Because I didn't actually say yes or no. I was like, that's amazing. And I was like, oh, well, yeah, of course I'm going to do it. And then I started getting like a few drafts for them, a couple rough drafts. So I definitely went through a few different ideas before landing on this. My first couple of drafts were very architectural based. I was kind of looking at the past posters that we had, specifically the one that's very the like golds and the blues and the
Hmm.
the skyline. You know the one, Nick.
Yeah, I do actually. I know which one you're talking about. Yeah.
Exactly. So I looked at a few of those and I had like the Elgin, the watchtower, and I had like a ghostly one, and then the broken, like, because it got knocked down, and I found like the old picture, and so it was very like weird architectural, but like ethereal in a way. Which I think I'll probably post at some point, or maybe let Side Street post if they want. But I sent it along to the committee, which I think you were part of,
Hmm.
maybe. Yeah. So you saw it,
I
or I think
did.
you saw it, yeah. And they're like, this is really cool, but we know that you can do something more, something different, something to really make it your own. So I think I was too caught up in thinking of previous posters. I wasn't allowing myself to make a really new poster. So just I sort of was given the permission. I was like told to run with it. Um, and that's when I got this idea because like we had Father Fringe last year, and I kind of got this idea in my head of like Kid Fringe, which is like what the poster's named to me, in my heart. And and also on the Photoshop file. It's named Kid Fringe, and I was just like everything that makes Fringe weird, like all these, like everything to me that like Fringe is just this big, huge culmination of people and things and weirdness, and I'm like, let's just shove it into one thing. And that was like this kid, just cover, hands and faces and heads and tentacles and stuff like that. Like, because I don't know, I sort of like to make weird, slightly horror, but also goofy things. So it started off as a sketch, and I'm like, I really like this. And mocked it up in Photoshop, sent it to Tanner, and Tanner's like, yes, this is it. This is the thing. So the background, I was really thinking about like the steps that lead up to the backspace, the chalk walls that we have that kids are always drawing on. So I did it sort of as like a chalk drawing in the background, just kind of thinking about Side Street as an entity. And that's where I kind of got it. Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, having a little bit of the back, like being on the other side of that, being on the committee and talking about your work. When we talked about a bunch of artists before we reached out to you, and it was one of those things where, when somebody said Jess, everyone was like, yeah, we could totally have Jess. And then I was like, no way. No. And we were all very enthusiastic about having you. And it is interesting you talk about the process. And yeah, you brought a couple ideas that were nice, but we were like, this isn't quite Jess enough. Like we really wanted it to be something that kind of screamed, what you've been doing lately. And you had a one-person show. I'm going to show some work from that in a second. Over the winter, and I think it was in the winter. Was it last fall? Even I can't even remember.
It was April.
April. It just seems like forever ago.
Yeah, like April, or I want to say April or June, but those are two very different months.
Yeah, it was definitely not June.
It was in that April-May chunk.
Okay.
I think I started installation in April.
Okay. Yeah, and it was just, your show was like so like you kind of talk about it like organic, but also kind of creepy. And I think a good way to kind of describe the work you've been doing is kind of like it belongs in like children's fairy tales, but not like the happy ones, like Brothers Grimm or like Alice in Wonderland, where there's a little bit of an edge to it. I don't know, you ever think about your work that way and kind of associating it with those kind of things, or am I completely off based on that?
Oh, absolutely. So I've got a little note card in front of me, and I have written on there like because I need to write things out because I'm very disorganized. But like dark fantasy is an influence. So, and from that dark fantasy, we get things like Pan's Labyrinth, which is like a dark horror fairy tale, like Miyazaki, Spirited Away, definitely dark fantasy genre. So be that movies, video games, children's stories, like, that's definitely.
Yeah. It's so like, not only is it very interesting, it's also very unique and well done. I'm going to go ahead and pull up your website. If I can, here we go.
I have not maintained it in a little bit. So
that's okay. So we have your website here, and it's from the solo show. It's a little bit strange, which is great. And you have these little sculptures of toadstools growing out of like moss, and they're all really kind of beautiful, but also maybe deadly and creepy. But so how did you get into this idea of, I guess, I would call them fairy gardens. I don't know if you would call them fairy gardens, but these small little sculptural elements in the glass like this?
I think I like the idea of containment. Like I think about in my work a lot of themes of growth versus decay and how growth is decay. And one thing that we do a lot with decay is we like to cut it off and try to contain it. Like, thinking about cutting off a piece of growth and shoving it in a jar to be tested or something like that. Just like a little grody way of thinking about it. But I also love, like, I don't know, it just seems really beautiful in a way to have these moments, to have these little individualized moments where they're related, they're together, but it's, I don't know, it's meeting nature with objectivity of the human world. But I don't know if that answered any of it, but
No, I think that was a pretty good answer to that. You also you played a little bit with textiles here with just this. Is that just to describe it as is that a cat head with? Maybe it's better if you describe it, so I don't butcher it.
So people's first impression of it was they were thinking octopus, but it is so this was me playing with different textiles and stuff, and it wasn't quite the installation I fully wanted to do. So this was sort of like me playing with it for the first time, but it doesn't feel completely finished to me. But its goal is essentially it's supposed to be floating in the air with all of these little fish around it and empty food cans at the bottom, and like those were supposed to be distended intestines like waving around, sort of looking like they could be limbs. So it was a mixture of limbs versus intestine.
Okay, I can totally see the intestine idea behind that for sure. These really, and it's almost, the photo almost doesn't do it justice. These were like teeth, but they were like almost tentacles coming out of the roots of the teeth instead of roots. What did you use to make these, and how did you come up with that idea?
Yeah, so those are made out of polymer clay.
Okay.
It's a oven baked clay that you can work with at home, which is really nice. The brand I use specifically is Sculpey. And I mean, I've been messing around with teeth for a while. People who know me know that I've been working in the dental field for 11 years now. I started dentistry when I was 15. And I've been around it my whole life because my family, my mom worked in dentistry for like 36 years.
Oh.
So I hyper focus on people's teeth. I will see them. You can't hide them from me. But you know, I've done a lot of surgeries and such, and it's just like, for me, teeth are really fascinating because they're so separated from bone, if that makes any sense. Like they're very, I mean, it's enamel versus bone, so it's a different material, and it's just like people are so creeped out by them, I think, which is really fun. So it's fun to make things that people are creeped out by. But I also like to explore the uncanny. So it's like, you know, I had a lot of people ask me like, oh, are those real teeth? And they're not, none of them are, but it's like pushing that boundary, like pushing what people think could be real, by twisting them and playing with them and working with that rot and mutation of growth that they could be undergoing.
Right, you can totally, like, they feel like they could be real, and because they have enough realism to them that the surreal part of it is almost plausible because of that. Which is just, yeah, that's crazy cool. And you've got some pieces here where you're playing around with on a board here. How did you? Is this string then? And then I'm not sure what all you used on this.
So that one was another experimental piece. Same with the one above it. They're very similar materials. I, with the help of my dad, made these wooden canvases. So I got some board from our local Menards. Shout out to Menards. There you go, they're way too much. But the bottom part is caulk.
Okay.
Like silicone and the white painter's caulk. And then I messed with some spray paint for color, poured some liquid latex on it, wrapped it in string and just covered that in gunk, and really just pushed how like grody I could kind of make it. And that one, I don't remember what I named that one. Can you scroll down just a teensy bit? Unsettled and Oozing. That one was kind of fun because working with certain materials too, like I specifically put liquid latex on it
Hmm.
Not the liquid latex that people use for like horror movies or anything, but like the liquid latex you get at a hardware store that you mix with concrete. But I'm allergic to latex. Like I get a rash from it. Nothing serious, but like thinking about rashes, working with something that creates a rash to make a piece of work that looks like it's breaking out in some weird rash of its own.
Oh
Was
yeah, with like that edge
fun.
there.
Yeah, it's just kind of a fun, I don't know, linking of artist to art, in my opinion. Um, I don't know.
That's cool. That's really cool. It's interesting because you're working in so many different ways, and part of your description, your artist description on the thing talks about your printmaker who's recently discovered that non-2D art forms exist and has started playing with sculpture and installation. So, How did you like create that bridge where you went from printmaking, which is a very flat medium generally, to these textural and also three-dimensional pieces?
I mean, I feel like, all artists have at least played a little bit with 3D art at some point, so it
Mm.
wasn't something that I was completely new to. But yeah, I was very, very engaged with printmaking, and that was what I was expecting to major in college and focus in completely, and do as my thing. Um, and then I think there was a few different things that kind of like pushed me away from it. Um, and if you're a printmaker, you know of the love-hate relationship of printmaking, where it's so process-based and so it really eats away at your time in a way. Um, like I've played with silkscreen, I've played with woodblock, intaglio, and lithograph prints. And I think lithographs are the thing that really pushed me out of printmaking, I think, because you're hoisting around like a 50-pound stone that you have to grind down perfectly. And so it's definitely demanding, but it is rewarding, and it's not something I'll ever abandon, I don't think. But part of the reason I stopped it was because I had to have like a pretty intensive eye surgery when I was in college, um, where I was off. I missed like 2 weeks of school from recovery time. They had to like go inside my eye and like fix it, and I had to keep my head down, completely down for like 45 minutes out of every hour for basically 2 weeks. Yeah, it was pretty rough, and then I could not see out of that eye for probably like I'd say like close to a year before it could even like open and do anything. So I was very vision limited while I was approaching my senior year of college, my thesis year. So working with small, minute details, which was very much my art process, especially in printmaking, became very difficult for me. I became very frustrated with it, and I just felt like I needed to do something more cathartic for me. So then I started working more with like, okay, I want to use my hands, I want to go bigger because I can't do small anymore. So I'm like, I need to make my work big so I can actually physically make it. Um, but also, to feel more engaging and to feel like I can really actually do this. Because I didn't want to lose quality by not being able to work so small. So that's when I started making the giant mushrooms. Those ended up being my thesis. So I was just in my studio every day that year, just working on making, and they're big. The biggest one I think is over 7 feet tall. So
Oh
they
wow.
were they were very easy to work with if you can't see. Um, It'd be funny. I'd be working in my studio and I'm facing this way. My good eye is to a wall. My bad eye is to where people would come up. So my friends would come up to check on me, and I wouldn't know they were there until they were like, "Hey, how's it going?" Um, Scare the crap out of me.
Oh
uh,
man.
And at one point they couldn't even get to me if they tried, because my studio was just filled with these mushrooms in different states, because the material I worked with would have to dry. So one would dry, I'd move to the next one. So I had all these different various states. And from there, I just, sculpture is very therapeutic compared to other art forms. At least for me, it's very visceral. It's very hands-on. It's literally hands-on. So I think that's part of the reason I was so focused on it. And it helped me a lot. And I've just kind of fallen in love with it a little bit. I'm still with it.
That's really cool. I think that's really interesting because, printmaking can be very visceral and very therapeutic in that process as well, especially if you're doing relief work, wood cuts or
Right.
lino cuts. So that transition into a sculptural thing totally makes sense. What were you using as a material? Were you using like chicken wire and like plaster wrap, or what exactly did you use to make the mushrooms?
So I sort of slapped together a technique for it. So it was a mixture of different types of wire. So like chicken wire, and then like this grid wire, a heavy duty grid wire. So I'd, kind of sew the metal to get the shape I want. And then I had a big old bucket of, it was a mixture of water, plaster, and glue. And
Okay.
I would put Scott's shop towels into it. So I wasn't using paper, I was using shop towels, which is like a cotton blend paper towel, like the blue ones you can get in the boxes. And I would let them soak in it, and I'd slap them on the frame, and then they dry, and it dry really hard and more sturdy than traditional paper mache. So I did it all in that, sealed it in with a primer, spray painted my base. It was really, I was learning as I went, which was pretty fun. And also like nerve-wracking. So I'm like, hey, this is what I'm doing for my final thesis, and I've never worked with this as material before, but here we go. Like, yay.
That's really cool. I love that, a kind of a fusion between plaster and paper mache, and making it just basically a more heavy duty mache. That's really very neat. So you went to school, you mentioned college, you went to school in Milwaukee, right? At Milwaukee School of Art and Design, is that right?
Yes, I did.
Okay.
I first went to Elgin Community College. I got my associates in fine art there and associates in science. Then I went to Columbia in Chicago for a semester, discovered it wasn't really for me. And then I went to the Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design for my final 2 years. So
Very
jumped
cool.
around a little bit.
Hey, you got to find what's right,
Yeah.
So what was it about Milwaukee that like drew you in and kept you there?
I mean, it's a beautiful city, especially the downtown area. But the school, I really liked that it was a small school. Like if you know me, I am not really a social butterfly. I'm quiet, I'm introverted, big crowds scare me, large schools scare me. Like Columbia was a big school with a lot of people, and didn't, I felt like I was just a face in a sea of faces.
Mhm.
While MyAd, it was very tailored to the student instead. So I think there was a total of 30 people in my entire major, the new studio practice. And we had really small classes and small thesis groups, and I got really close to my friends there. But yeah, it felt more geared to what the student needed. Like they did away with majors in their fine art program. It turned it to new studio practice. We were the first graduating class with that new overarching major.
Mm.
Um, so instead of like with your thesis and everything, instead of being like, oh, okay, this is your painting thesis, this is your sculpture thesis, your printmaking thesis, it was more like, okay, it was more based on the concepts behind it. So it was conceptual, it was installational, it was based on how you wanted to proceed as an artist, which helped me a lot specifically from going printmaking to sculpture to whatever, to have teachers that were completely okay with that and were completely equipped and able to handle those switches. So that was nice.
That's actually really cool and such a
Mhm.
great approach to studio art, which, you know, most art schools, it is very, very much you're a painting major, you're an illustration major, you're sculpture, like especially those last couple of years when it's like all focused on what
Right.
your focus is. That's so cool that they kind of changed it to be about the artist building
Mhm.
themselves as an artist no matter what the medium.
Yeah, I mean, of course you could still be like, okay, I'm gonna take like multiple painting classes. I'm
Sure.
gonna make the painting teacher my on my thesis board and what have you. Like there were certainly people who like, I'm a photography person, I'm going to do photography. But by having the classes built the way they weren't always with photography students. They were able to see what everybody else was doing, and it kind of gave you the versatility to do more with your art than you would normally. Like we had photographers who weren't just putting stuff in a frame on the wall, they were doing installation work with it,
Hmm.
which is pretty cool. So it let us all kind of see each other's work and play with each other's ideas. It's very nice.
That is so cool. That's really neat. So you are from Bartlett originally, right? And
Yeah.
you studied at Elgin Community College, then went to Columbia, and then to Milwaukee. So how did you end up back here in Elgin?
Because I moved back home with my parents.
Fair enough.
Uh, um, no, I mean that's obviously part of the reason. So you finish school, you move back home with your folks, so you can pay your student loans and save up some money and such. It's nice to have a little home base. But Elgin was something I had been interested in for a bit, like Side Street specifically. I had a few friends who were involved in Side Street who had their shows there. Like the Metrianos were very involved at Side Street, like Christine and Julian. So that was sort of how I knew about Side Street as an entity. Um, I knew that they had our intern programs and artist in resident programs. So I was like, you know what? Here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna go home, live with my parents for a bit, get these student loans taken care of, get some money, work on a portfolio. And I'm like, and I think I'm going to apply to be the artist in resident at Side Street. Because I'm like, you know what? I have to push myself to keep doing art because I need the structure, like some sort of art-based structure, or else I tend to lose my studio practice a little bit. So I reached out, I sent an email to Mr. Tanner, and I met with him, and he's like, so you want to be an artist in resident, or are you looking to be an intern? What do you want to be? I was like, artist in resident, dang it. He was like, okay. Told me what I had to do, gave me the keys, and the rest is history at this point.
That's cool. Now you're still stuck here even after you're done with your
They caught me
residency.
in their web. They won't let me leave.
It's hard.
Now I manage the lab a little bit, and I've been doing the maid store. So I'm the one you can ask about questions about that.
And you have
Yeah,
work in made that people can buy?
I do. Those little mushrooms that you were showing. The little mushroom, you called them fairy gardens. My little containers, those are in made. A couple of the teeth are in made, those teeth frames, as well as a few prints. I did get back into printmaking a little bit. I made some prints with Mary Sweeney of Horror Floral, and those are available as well for some affordable prices.
Yeah. So if you're watching this and you're like, I really love Jess's work, you can go to Made and buy it because it is fantastic work.
Fridays from 3 to 7. It's not on the online store yet.
There you
So I
go.
prioritize the other artists instead of myself.
It's
Um,
great though because Friday is 3 to 7. You can come down, go to Made, get some vegetables at the farmers market, and check out the gallery at Side Street all at the same time.
oh Yeah, it's a lot of fun too. So we hang out, we're wearing masks. You don't have to look at our faces if you don't want to. And you can buy some art and say hello.
So Jess, if people want to follow your work, what's the best way for them to do that?
The best way for them to do that is my Instagram, which is jessrocha.art, A-R-T, at Instagram. I don't know its handle. It's on Instagram. jessrocha.art. My website is jessrochaart.com. And I don't post as often as I should, but you can definitely check out all of my previous work on there. There's some work in progress pictures on the Instagram. If you go back far enough, you can see the progress pictures for the large mushrooms I was talking about. And yeah, that's a pretty good spot to start, at least. You can always email me too if you're like, I don't know, if you want to ask me more questions.
They might. I mean, they didn't get asked during the interview, so they might have questions and email you with them. Well, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It was really fantastic to get to talk to you and get to know you a little bit better. So thank you again. And thank you for all of you that are watching this. This Meet the Makers series is put out here so you guys can get a chance to see who these people are behind all of these great things that are happening at the Elgin Fringe Festival. Please come to the gallery, check out the artwork on the walls. Every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday it's open, including some amazing work by Jess, which is right behind me. Not just the poster, but also more great stuff. Stay tuned for our next Meet the Makers interview, which is going to be tomorrow at noon, hopefully live again. We're going to try to get that figured out with Judah LeBlanc, who has a great one-person show in the festival. So thank you so much for watching. I'm Nick Mataragas. I'll see you next time.
Bye.